This is the second Arduino video. Today, or in this video, we're going to hook up the IR receiver. And if you should already have the receiver, which is right here, and the LED remote, which is this. So today we're going to get those working. And then, separately, we're going to get the LED working, and then later on we'll hook it all together. So this is an IR receiver, and it can really handle any sort of IR device. So if you have a remote control or anything like that, how it works is that it just picks up signals from an IR LED, which is contained in the end of here, and you can use those to code in different input. So part of what we've got to do, first we're going to hook up this receiver into our Arduino, so that we can later on program it so that it can read all that input and do certain things with our LED, the way that we program it to. So you can see labeled on the receiver, it's ground, GND, VCC, and out. So what that stands for, so this is the ground for our power, so that should be at 0 volts. VCC, which is at 5 volts. And then out, which will be our data signal out from our LED remote. So, what you typically do with a breadboard, you never really hook things sideways like that. You always put them so that each one is on its own separate row, so that you can hook up to them separately. So that way we can keep the ground and the 5 volts and the signal separate. So next, you can see on your Arduino here, it's a little bit hard to see on this video, but there's 2 pins here marked 5 volts and ground. So we're going to hook those onto the power rails here. So this blue, you can see minus, that signifies ground. So we can hook a black wire there and a black wire into the ground, which is second from the end. And then we do the same thing with the power, 5 volts. Which you can see is also marked. It's 2 away, so put one in there and hook it up to our power rail. So now anything we want to power, we can just hook it onto this rail and it'll automatically receive power from the Arduino. And obviously it's not powered now, so there's nothing going through it now, but you should never have it powered while you're hooking things up. So next, since we want to bring those 2 pins of our IR receiver to 0 volts and 5 volts, you can remember ground, the leftmost, we'll hook that into our ground. And then VCC, we want to hook into our 5 volts. And we'll put that in here. As for the data pin, so later on, we're going to be using pin 7 of the Arduino, which is marked here D7, digital pin 7 is our data input. So we'll hook onto that with a yellow wire. Generally, it's a good thing to keep things color coded. So, if you can't do that, that's no big deal because they all work the same, but it's easier if something comes out to fix it later. So you can see D7 is marked right here, and all you have to do if you want to figure out which is which, you just look down the side of the Arduino, which pin on the Arduino is hooked into what. So now it's all hooked up. We can power it up. We should see a little bit of a light going on the, since it's not working right now, but now everything's hooked up. So now we'll go on to the programming side.
Hello. This is the first real coding video for the Arduino take-home project for IE. We've tried these a couple different ways. We kind of figured that the best way to make these work is just to walk through a simplified version of the code. We'll provide you a more complex one that you can build on and even make more interesting if you want to. But this is just the most basic version of what we're doing with the IR remote. So our goal is we want to read codes from an IR remote and be able to execute different code conditionally based on what that code is. So real quick, I'll do some of the boilerplate stuff. So let me take this out quick. And then we're going to be using an external library that allows us to read really accurately the codes from an IR remote and do it really reliably. So the way that you get that library, if you go to Tools, Manage Libraries, um, and then you can look up IR remote. So this is just a remote that, reading infrared signals from an IR remote. They have a whole bunch of stuff in there, but we're just doing a basic version. So it's the one by Sheriff, and I already have it installed, but if you didn't have it installed, it'd kind of look like this where you click install. And I'm using version 3.0.1, and I guess there's more versions after that. So you can kind of pick the version that you want. It might be a good idea to go with the same version, but I think it would work either way. But then once you have that installed, if you go to Sketch and then include library, you can pick this library from the list. It should be in contributed libraries. And then when we add that, it includes that library. So now we have all those different functions that we didn't have access to before. So, like reading input and decoding it. So this is the just really basic version of the code. So we have one IR code. So I'm just going to walk you through what this program does. So we start off and we define what our receive pin is. And if you hooked it up the same way as in the video, it should be 7. And then we also just define one code here. So when we run it later, you'll kind of see what it's like. So, BF40 FF00. So you can do a hex to decimal conversion thing online if you want. But all that is, it's a hexadecimal, so it goes from 0 to F instead of 0 to 9. So it's 0 to 9, A, B, C, D, E, F. So we already got that code and we put it in here. We'll be sending out, or we'll be attaching a more complex version with more codes like determined from the remotes that we're giving out. But you can always just find all the codes on the remote if you want. We're thinking that's one place that people can do a little bit more customization. Here we're defining where we're going to store that data that we got from the IR remote. And then in this setup, which just runs once and sets up some of the variables and different things for our code to run, we say IR receiver.begin and we give it the receive pin. We also start the serial monitor, which I'll show in a little bit. Allows us to decode and debug some of the different things inside our code really easily on Arduino. And we also set that pin mode to input. And then inside the loop, so this will just run forever. So first we say, okay, does the IR receiver, did it receive anything? So IR receiver.decode. If that is true, meaning it did receive a value, then we'll go inside these brackets and we'll say, okay, put that value that you received into receive data, which is the variable that we declared up here. We just say it's long type because some of these codes are kind of long. That's a big number. So then after we've received that data and we stored it inside that variable, now we say, okay, if this variable isn't 0, let's print it out and show it in hexadecimal so it's the same as right here. And then we resume our receiver. And then after we've gotten that received data, we say, okay, switch on this data, meaning depending what this data is, do different operations. So we've already defined this term, power. We said, okay, the power code is this. It's BF40FF0. And then inside this switch statement, we say, okay, in the case that it is power, meaning it's BF40FF0, we want to print out power to the serial monitor to know that we've received the right pin. If it's something else, it runs a default, which is nothing. It does nothing. So we're going to save this, and we can verify this sketch by clicking the verify button. And if you still have your Arduino plugged in, so it should say some sort of USB serial, or if you're on a Windows, it might be something different. But still with the old bootloader and the Nano. Now when we click upload, we'll put it into our Arduino, and it might take a second, but now it's done uploading. And now we go back to tools and we open up our serial monitor. So now our Arduino is running, and you can click all sorts of buttons that you want. So I'll press this button A. I'm pressing one of the green buttons. And if you don't hold it very long, it might get part of a code or something. But now we'll press our power button and see it recognizes it and it says, oh, this is power, BF40FF0. And we click it again, same thing. And you can go and find all the codes. We'll include some code, like a file with some of the codes picked out. And you can do all the codes, or you can do some, or however many you want. But the whole idea is that this doesn't need just to print out power. It can really do whatever we want. So instead of printing power in the future, now we'll actually turn the LED strip on and off. So there's tons of stuff you can do with this. This is just something that this is a good starting point for working with the remote. And I also have the more finished version that we're going to provide you guys. So now we have red, green, blue, power, the red going up, red going down, whatever. So now we can upload this into our Arduino instead. And it gets a little bit more complex when you have this many. That's why we showed the simple version, but it's done uploading. So now if we look at our serial monitor, we click green, it says green, blue, red. We can check the power, green up, green down. So hopefully this got you a little bit of an understanding of how this works and how you could add more codes to your data. So, you can add you'll start with all these, and then you can add all the different colors that, like the 2 pinks and 2 blues and stuff, or whatever you want, or even do some of the DIY pins. So, this is just a good starting point. And now we'll go back to I think it's the next video. So if you have any issues running this, please let us know, and we'll be happy to help.